Hello, welcome to our Healthy Lifestyle Clinic. Today we are presenting our slides as promised, and we would like to engage our MS community to be part of this healthy lifestyle work stream and perhaps implement some clinics at the region in the local areas. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm a consultant neurologist. My name is Dr. Agne Straukiene. I'm a neurologist with a special interest in MS, and I'm based at Torbay Hospital. And my colleague today is Colin Bannon. So Colin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Dr. Colin Bannon. I'm a retired GP, always been very interested in preventative medicine, and even more so since my own diagnosis of MS. So I'm very happy to be involved in a healthy living clinic.
So I would like to give you a bit of a background. So the reason why we started doing healthy lifestyle clinics is we recognize that healthy lifestyle is a complementary medicine for people with MS. It is a disease-modifying living for MS, and people with MS become grateful learning new things, new skills that empowers them to have a control and implement some small changes for their well-being. So the concept of the clinic is we run it once a month for newly diagnosed people with MS. Usually it runs 2 hours of educational session that we are going to share slides, and Colin is going to take over and present. Thereafter, after 2 hours of educational session, we go into one-to-one clinical assessment. If people with MS have any personal inquiries, they are allowed to have one-to-one. And so the outcomes are being recorded from this event, and it's been accepted as a clinical event, so therefore we have to create clinical outcome letters. And people coming to the clinic, they are invited by the appointment letter. So you probably would think and argue, how can we convince everyone to be part of it, and whether people with MS are ready to implement these changes. So quite often when I see people in my clinic, I would ask them, how are you feeling? How are you feeling having, short of breath? How are you feeling living with diabetes? And how are you feeling walking uphill? Is there any quality of life that is affected knowing that you have comorbidities beside MS? So these struggles would highlight to people that actually they could implement changes that could feel them better. And we have some research and we have evidence to support this. So Colin will do his presentation, so I hope you will enjoy.
Well, thanks very much, Agne, and my name's Dr. Bannon. I'm here to talk about a disease-modifying lifestyle for people with MS. This is along the lines of what we've been doing at the Healthy Living Clinic at Newton Abbot, as Agne has described. To introduce myself, I'm a retired GP now. I was a GP for 23, I think, years at the Manomead Surgery in Plymouth, but I've always had an interest in food, having had a short career in farming before medicine, and I continue to grow my own food and be very interested in food and its impact and benefits on the health. This was magnified for me when my own MS was diagnosed at the age of 57, having had symptoms most of my life. I had severe glandular fever, like so many of us had at the age of 14, and then some very old symptoms when I was young. MS hugs, which were misdiagnosed as cardiac events in my midlife, a couple more relapses until I was eventually diagnosed at the age of 57, which was quite a delay from the initial symptoms, but my course has been fairly mild. Nonetheless, I was put into a poor prognosis group because I'm male and I'm older at diagnosis. And we decided that while there would be no immediate treatment, if I suffered any further relapses, then we'd aim for some pretty significant disease-modifying therapies. There's my scan over there. There's the initial lesion from the initial problem that caused me to present with facial numbness on my brain scan. So I was left then not so much in limbo, but really very much on my own to look at what I could do for myself to improve my outlook with MS. And my aim was then to aim for a lifestyle that would modify the disease and keep it at bay to whatever degree I could. At the age of 64, I've got now the proud granddad of a 3-year-old boy who I'd very much like to see into his 20s. So my own personal aim with my MS is to try and live as long and as well as I can. And I hope some of the lessons I've learned to enable me to do that, I'll be able to share with you today. And we need to reflect on multiple sclerosis in my own time. Since I qualified, which was just after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is not really so long ago, there was no treatment, no lifestyle interventions, not even any MRI scanning in those days. But over the course of my time as a GP, everything has changed. First interferon in 1993, and then a whole cascade of new and better medications backed up by more and better research and a better understanding of lifestyle and how it impacts upon MS. So optimism and positive thinking is now entirely realistic for anybody recently going through the shock of a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. I'd go further though. Optimism and positive thinking is now actually important for people with MS to address the changes we can all make in our lives to improve our lot with it after the diagnosis. Because they can do amazing things. There are so many good investigations, there's so many good therapies, there's more in the pipeline, there's loads of incredible research going on, despite the stresses of COVID and all the difficulties of this year. There's still very good treatments for people with MS. And they can do amazing things, but we can do amazing things too as patients and people with MS. Around the time of the diagnosis, there's a tremendous feeling of loss of control. Your whole direction in life's been changed. The future's very uncertain, and there's a desire to regain that sense of control, to fight back against the illness, to do what you can to overcome MS. That's a very common sentiment, but I think we have to really sit back and think, what do we actually have to do to make that happen? Well, we have to adapt to the new landscape of life after the diagnosis. Things are very different, and we have to work out how we're going to plot our way forward. That involves change. We have to look at our lives and change what we think needs changing. And I hope that would, usually for most of us, would involve some improvements to the way we live, to be able to arrive at a disease-modifying lifestyle. The essence of this, of course, is non-smoking, staying trim, being as active as you possibly can, and engaging in some moderate levels of exercise, avoiding excess alcohol, and eating a quality diet. These are some of the things I'll be looking at in terms of the standard Western diet, and avoiding any further illnesses. But of course, with MS, there are particular issues with brain-healthy food, vitamin D. Sleep is critically important, and meditation is very, very useful. So we can do amazing things in all those different areas as people with MS. And I'd like to take the structure of this talk will be about taking you through all those different areas. I'm not being modest in my aims. It's definitely a lifestyle that will improve the outcome for people with MS, will improve our general health and well-being, and reduce even the incidence of MS. The incidence of MS is increasing, and much of that is linked to lifestyle in a way that we can change. So we'll be exploring the Western lifestyle and how to avoid the pitfalls it offers, developing particular aspects of lifestyle for people with MS, preventing MS in family members, which is very important for us all. That was a particular moment in my when I was on my diagnostic treadmill, when I realised that the risk of my own family members, my daughter, of developing MS had increased tenfold. So preventing MS in family members is something I'm very interested in. And I'll wrap up with some conclusions. So first, the Western lifestyle and avoiding its pitfalls. Of course, Western life is deeply stressful nowadays. There's problems with the urban life. The built environment isn't one that's terribly healthy. There's poverty and a huge swathes of the population who struggle to get by financially on a day-by-day basis with all the anxiety and worry that generates. There are different levels of education, some not so good in this country. There's a social and community context. There's a lot of loneliness and isolation and difficulties in accessing healthcare, all of which can determine our outcomes with health. And we read that all of those aspects are something that we should identify for ourselves and do what we can to do about them. But I think we can go beyond that, because the Western life is still a matter of what we do on a day-by-day basis. And this, of course, is primed when we're very young. The Western lifestyle becomes out of a bombardment of advertising that we see on television and social media. This is some research done by the Cancer Research UK on children's experience of life, right back to when we were children. On average, the average UK kid watches 22 hours of TV and spends 16 hours online each week, which is pretty phenomenal in all sorts of ways. But critically, they are exposed to 18 junk food adverts per hour. So we're all primed, we're all convinced about our food choices, and start making some very unhealthy choices, because in supermarkets now, there is a phenomenal amount of choice of good food, but also many foods which hardly deserve the name. I tend to call them edible food-like products, highly processed foods that are just different ingredients assembled together and packaged in a package and labelled to offer taste, convenience, and affordability. So there's been an absolute explosion in my lifetime of supermarkets and availability of incredibly low quality food. And I think that for many people, certainly when we start eating out and seeing some of the food on offer from many of our takeaway outlets, I think it's fair to say that there are many of us, many people in Plymouth and in this country and in the Western world, are probably eating the unhealthiest diet ever known to mankind. It's high sugar, high fat, highly processed, highly salty, very tasty, very cheap, and I would argue, as you'll discover shortly, that it's also quite deadly. So to summarise, the modern Western lifestyle involves smoking, although declining in the general population is still a significant problem, obesity, lack of exercise, particularly at work. We've designed physical work and exercise more or less out of our culture. Excess alcohol is a real problem, and the Western diet is inherently unhealthy, full of, as I said a moment ago, edible food-like substances which barely deserve the term food. So down that pipeline of lifestyle, when we start as young people eating unhealthily, go through our teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, things start to happen. This is Tottenham versus Chelsea last year, I think. And why I'm showing this slide is because the difference in lost years between Chelsea and Tottenham, Kensington, and the area around Tottenham, from a relatively underprivileged area in Tottenham to a wealthy area in Chelsea, there's a staggering 17 years of life on average lost between the two populations due to the differences in lifestyle, in aspects of lifestyle that I've mentioned. Underneath these early deaths are generally caused by heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. They're the three big killers. So let's look at the contribution of our current lifestyle to our lost years of life. Well, the heart disease lifestyle causes 80% of heart attacks, heart failure, and so on. Cancer, 50% is caused by lifestyle. Diabetes, an astonishing 90% is caused by lifestyle. And COVID-19, more recently, what an experience that's been. 60% of hospital admissions can reasonably be attributed to the lifestyle points I've mentioned above: smoking, obesity, and the development of these different illnesses. So lifestyle really can be deadly. And they're the aspects of lifestyle, again, that this study I'm referring to, or the study from which I got these figures, refers to: smoking, overweight, lack of exercise, too much alcohol, and the Western diet are the culprits that lie behind these astonishing figures. And why this matters in MS? Because the same risk factors that create all these other illnesses are also those risk factors which make multiple sclerosis worse, exactly the same. But I'd like to, in this presentation, try and turn this on its head, because lifestyle can also be so beneficial. If you think about all those different lifestyle areas, 80% of heart disease, 50% of cancer, almost all diabetes and COVID admissions, again, can be prevented by a healthy lifestyle of non-smoking, staying trim, getting active and having reasonable amounts of exercise, avoiding alcohol, and eating a quality diet. And we'll be going through these items one by one to just give you further information about why these really matter in multiple sclerosis. So a disease-modifying lifestyle in multiple sclerosis are these particular items I just mentioned, plus I think particularly to MS, a brain healthy food, getting your vitamin D status right, sleeping well, and using meditation as a tool to deal with stress and reduce the consequences of anxiety and depression, which are so common in MS. And while poverty it looms large for more and more people, we also have to realise that healthy living can be affordable. Non-smoking clearly saves a fortune. Staying trim can save you money. If you look at how much can be spent on soft drinks and garbage food, if you do nothing else but eliminate those from your diet, money can be saved. Moderate activity and healthy physical life can be free. It can involve going to the gym or having expensive physical hobbies, but it can also be free, just built into the day-to-day life. Avoiding alcohol clearly saves money. And a quality diet, we have to say, does cost more. And it's a terrible indictment of society for politicians to state that we need to offer cheaper and cheaper food, because many people can afford little else, rather than a design a society that produces health food, that promotes people's health. That's a fundamental problem going on in society. So staying healthy nonetheless is worth it. Many of us can afford to make these changes, and for all of us there's ways of improving what we do on a day-by-day basis. So let's have a look at smoking. Why stop smoking when you've got multiple sclerosis? Well, first, it doubles the risk of getting MS in the first place. Turning that on its head, non-smoking halves the risk of getting MS. Once you've diagnosed, of course, it's too late, but that really does apply to the example you offer to your children. Smoking accelerates the disease. It brings forward that interface between relapsing, remitting MS and developing secondary progressive MS, which we want to delay as far as we can. Smoking brings that forward 8 years on average. So for some people, it will bring it very much more than 8 years. So smoking really makes a huge difference to your future. But of course, non-smoking slows down the disease by 8 years. So anybody who's smoking, who realizes that the difference it can make, I hope will be motivated to make that big positive change. Swedish studies have estimated that smoking leads to 10 to 20% of cases of MS. And again, if no one smoked, that means there'd be 10 to 20 less cases of MS to deal with, which would be a huge public health success story. And while smoking is partly inherited, the children of smokers are far more likely to smoke. If you give up smoking, you'll be doing your kids a big favour. And we shouldn't forget that as an ex-smoker, I can tell you, the moment you give up, you start feeling better straight away. Your pulse slows, your blood pressure lowers, you feel less stress, you have a better taste and sense of smell, as well as smelling better yourself. We have better breathing, lung function gets back to normal, better levels of energy, less stress, and our risks of illness fall back to normal as the years go by. And you save an absolute packet. So there's so many good things about giving up smoking. It's just crossing that interface between being a smoker and being a non-smoker. As an ex-smoker, I can tell you, being a non-smoker is fantastic. There's not a day passes that I don't think reflect upon how difficult life is when you smoke. So the second best decision you will ever make in life is to stop smoking. Of course, the very best decision is never to start in the first place. But if you do see this and you've got MS and you're still troubled with smoking, it really is a fantastic time to end that habit and improve your experience of day-to-day life. Staying trim is an issue of the moment. Obesity levels have rocketed through the world. It's particularly important with MS because obesity is associated with a higher relapse rate, faster degree disease progression, and increased levels of disability. It's not rocket science. This is very well proven in a whole number of different studies. And in my own life as a GP, I've found that in my own population, 30% were overweight, 30% were obese, and only 30% were of normal weight, and 1% were thin. And the prevalence during my career had gone up from less than 1% when I joined the surgery in 1990, 500% to 5%. That's 1 in 20 people in my surgery over the period of my career have developed diabetes. I mean, for me, that's a health emergency. Underneath this, of course, is there's the morbidity. There's a huge range of problems associated with being overweight, which we alluded to earlier on. There's me in my full gardening regalia with a body mass index having suddenly leapt from 20 to 27 by picking up 26 kilograms of water in those 2 watering cans. And I can tell you, I can water a few plants with it, but day-to-day life with that extra weight really is pretty tough. Walking around with a BMI of 27 for me is a completely different and far more arduous experience. Losing weight is a positive thing to do on a day-by-day basis. It makes life easier. So what are we eating that's creating this catastrophe, this health catastrophe? There's 3 culprits. The first culprit is sugar. Sugar consumption has rocketed over the last couple of hundred years and mirrors exactly the increasing incidence of diabetes, the couple of blips during the 2 world wars. Our consumption has never been this high in the 70,000 years or so of human life. We're not used to or designed to eating this amount of sugar, and we're now experiencing incredible levels of problems as a consequence. As a GP, I was desperate to try and help my patients with diabetes and overweight problems, and I did cause to reflect on just how much sugar we're eating. Well, in this country, we do this wonderful National Diet and Nutrition Survey, which has been rolling on for some years now. This is slightly old figures, but it puts the case very well because our levels of sugar consumption are astonishing. Suffice it to say that teenagers will eat their own body weight in sugar every couple of years, and the average 3-year-old in this country will eat their own body weight in added sugar every single year. This is not something that's compatible with real health. Adults, by the time we reach our older age, will have eaten on average 2 metric tons of sugar over their lifetime, beg your pardon. But that's probably, these are due to surveys. People tend to fib a little bit when it comes to food. The sugar lobby confidently assert that we eat 35 kilograms of sugar per head in this country. That's 24 spoonfuls of sugar each every day. Most of that's hidden, tucked away in foods where you wouldn't realize it's there. And it's the equivalent of 3 cans of Coca-Cola a day. That's 27 spoonfuls of sugar in those 3. There are quite a few people out there who'd get through 3 cans of soft drinks every day with the phenomenal amounts of sugar they contain. Incidentally, the habit of drinking 3 cans of Coke a day will cost you nearly 500 quid a year. So there are huge benefits in giving that up. And I found that with a couple of patients who really, once they found out the real contents and effects of things like this and gave them up, experienced real health benefits, weight loss, feeling better, saving money. That 35 kilograms of sugar is stored as fat. We don't burn sugar straight away for energy. Our metabolic system stores it as fat And the poor chap on the left is 15 kilograms heavier than the guy on the right. And that's the difference sugar can make in our diet. It's not an uncommon phenomenon. So as a GP, I thought I was very well motivated and I thought well placed to help people lose weight by sharing this advice with them. Give up sugar in hot drinks. Stop drinking sugary drinks, fruit juices, yogurts, and so on. Save confectionery for biscuits, buns, cakes, etc. for odd occasions, celebrations. But if you've got diabetes, it would be best to get them out of your life altogether. Cut down on rice, potatoes, pasta, those needless carbohydrates that add so much energy to our diet. And to be able to do this, read to the back of the labels on anything that has a food label, anything in a package, to know and become aware of exactly what it is that you're buying. I followed patients up, as GPs do tend to, and the consequences were really interesting. First, patients found that there were many aspects of the junk food, the edible food-like products, as I call them, that had to leave their diet, particularly breakfast cereals. They are loaded with sugar, but beyond the obvious candidates, there's many, many areas of life: bread, muffins, white bread, burgers, and all the other fast food that's tasty, convenient, cheap, that is heavily loaded with sugar. These kind of rightly named junk food items have long lists of ingredients, most of which are unrecognizable. They have a long shelf life, which for me means even the bacteria and fungi won't eat these things. You can leave some of these breakfast cereals out for 6 months and they'll be exactly the same. None of our other little biological companions, bacteria or molds, will touch the stuff for good reasons. And they're usually accompanied by pretty aggressive marketing. They taste they are designed for their taste, and I think some of the contents do have an element of addiction too. Many patients moved slowly or partially towards a diet with no sugar, which is full of healthy vegetables, nuts, fruits, fishes, meats. There's a whole range of healthy food out there, which once you start missing the unhealthy aisles in the supermarket, there's plenty to eat. So what happened? I followed these patients up for 4 years. There were 250 patients by the time I retired altogether. Following this advice, which was given in the context of a 10-minute consultation. There was nothing fancy about it, nothing really quite particularly clever. 75% of the patients lost weight, and the patients who didn't lose weight readily admitted they hadn't made the changes. So in a way, this advice is 100% successful for people who choose to take it. Weight loss was on average 7%, which is maintained over 4 years. Many patients lost more than 10% of their body weight, with huge benefits to their immediate and long-term health. 16% happened to be no longer obese, just went from the obese category to the overweight category and beyond. There were big improvements in diabetes. I was unable to undiagnose several of my patients with diabetes, reduce medications for people with hypertension, and there were benefit for patients with arthritis too. And there was a better sense of well-being. Patients, it's delightful to know that you can get control of your weight. So many people struggle with complex diets, expensive diets, but just making that simple change of getting sugar out of your diet really made people feel better and gave them a sense of control over their lives. And I must say, a happier doctor, it was a wonderful thing to do. Some of the best medicine I think I did in my career. And I have to say there are benefits for non-obese patients too. There are many people out there eating the Western diet who aren't obese but are still in trouble in the medium and long term because of the lousy diet they're eating. So the conclusion was clearly that sugar makes a big difference to health, and getting sugar out of your diet as much as you can would be of enormous benefit to people with MS. This is a picture of David Unwin, who's a GP from Liverpool area, who's gone far further than I ever dreamt of in terms of setting up specific clinics for overweight patients with diabetes. particularly emphasising on a low carbohydrate diet, getting white bread, sugar, processed food, rice, pasta, potatoes out of the diets of patients with diabetes, and having incredible success. It's revolutionised the treatment, in my opinion, of diabetes, and has enormous benefits for any inflammatory disorder like multiple sclerosis. The second culprit are vegetable oils. This is Crisco cottonseed oil, which was first, came into Western world really towards the end of last century, or towards the beginning of the 20th century, I should say, and was initially a waste product before they realised that you could actually do some cooking and baking with it. But they're loaded with omega-6s, which is a problem in the modern world, completely new, untried, untested, unresearched experiment with the health of the world's population. These oils tend to be pro-inflammatory, and importantly, they release endless lists of toxic products when they're heated. They are not good oils to be heated. And the average consumption in the West is 7.5 litres a year. So for every family that doesn't buy any, there's a family that buys twice as much. These products are not good for your health. It would certainly be useful to think about these and cut them down significantly. Because for me, the ideal use for these industrial oils are in my chainsaw. That's the only time I actually buy them. But if they do have a place in the kitchen, and if you're going to use these oils, and some of them do have health benefits, extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed, is ideal. It's not heated up, bleached, extracted with solvents, and it doesn't go through all the other industrial processes that the ordinary seed and nut oils go through. And flax oil too, which is one of the unusual oils. You can't heat it up at all, but it's very good in salad dressing because it does contain a lot of omega-6s. And the third culprit in the modern Western diet is white refined grains. Because a grain, if you look at this tiny cut out section of a grain here, comprises three things, two of which are relatively good for your health. There's the germ and the bran, which are a part of normal wholemeal products, whole food products, and the central endosperm, the starchy inner core, which is basically a lot of glucose molecules stuck together. There's not many reasons I can understand. I can certainly see it from a commercial point of view, but why on earth would you create a perfectly healthy food and go and process it in industrial factories to create an unhealthy food? I guess many of the byproducts of this will be sold off separately, and you end up with something that can be sold cheaply. White bread is very cheap, but it's very damaging for your health, and all the other products with white flour in them are something very much to be avoided for anybody with diabetes, anybody with weight problems, or anybody indeed concerned with their health, but particularly people with MS, because the stakes are higher for us. We have to eat a very, very healthy diet, and we really do need to exclude refined grains. So being trim with MS, to turn the obesity thing on its head, is associated with a lower relapse rate, slower disease progression, and reduced disability, and really worth thinking about, making a few decisions about, and moving towards. There's more to it than meets the eye, though. There's also the issue of how we're eating as a part of our Western lifestyle. This is a lovely little study that was done in America, as so many of these studies seem to be. 47 people were given an app from the researchers, and were asked to photograph every item of food or drink that passed their lips. Over a period of time of 3 weeks, there were 27,000 images sent in. Many of them were for water fluids, clear fluids only, but you can see from this clock between 6 a.m. In the morning and 12 a.m. at night, it's just one constant feast of activity when it comes to food. We have pretty much gone from eating regular meals to this circadian chaotic pattern of eating, with patterns changing on a day-by-day basis, with only half our calories coming from meals, on average 3 hours between each individual experience of eating something with calories. Over a quarter were from pre-packaged items, snacks, crisps, biscuits, buns, cakes, all that sort of stuff. And more than half the adults in this study were eating for over 15 hours a day, and including many who are clearly getting up at night to eat snacks. So this is made a huge change in my lifestyle from really, when I was a kid, everybody had more or less 3 meals a day with maybe a couple of snacks, possibly. That's 5 times a day, but not this chaotic eating, which I guess has been prompted also by advertising, convenient microwave ovens, and of course the fridge. Putting it another way, you can see that although there was a couple of peaks at lunchtime and tea time, this American population are munching their way through incredible amounts of calories pretty much over 18 hours, with a moment of sleep there interrupted by the occasional snack. Happily, the researchers went a little bit further with this and just said, look, if you just eat within a 12-hour window, which is entirely achievable, I think, for the vast majority of people, just to limit your eating for 12 hours so that in essence you have a 12-hour fast, is something that's really quite achievable. And their population of 47 people lost on average 3.3 kilos. Interestingly, had much better sleep, and so they had much better levels of energy. So the benefits of just eating within 12 hours, no late night snacks in particular, or eating in the evening, this means, results in significant improvements to health, and losing weight, more energy, and better sleep are really useful in MS. Of course, you can go further. You can go to this. There's a whole new culture about fasting based on some pretty good science, and I've engaged with this myself. And my experience, and the experience of many people I've discussed this with, is that it's one of the immediate benefits of fasting is it changes your attitude to food. It prevents the craving. I mean, paradoxically enough, you don't experience so much hunger. Hunger is something that most of us actually don't experience. It's not the craving for food that comes from certain sugary type of foods which leave you craving for more an hour later. It's the perfect marketing tool, really, some of these foods. And when you fast, it breaks that cycle. It gives you time without food, and you soon realize that hours and hours and hours, big chunks of the day can go by without even a thought of food, which for many people would be a huge improvement. The average weight loss with fasting, again, is about 3%, but it's beyond that. It's better for the metabolism. It has a positive effect on inflammation, again, so important for us with MS. And there's more and more evidence accumulating that it's actually good for the brain in the way the metabolism works. So how would you go about fasting? The traditional way is a 5-2 diet, i.e. 5 normal days and 2 days where you eat just 500 calories. You can work up to that slowly over a period of probably a couple of months would be best, because it's a significant change. And it's something that people can aspire to, but there's lots of other ways of doing it as well. The 5-2 diet is associated with about 7% weight loss on average, which is useful for anybody trying to lose weight. Time-restricted feeding is what I've gone for, and for me it's very simple. It means I have tea time at 6-ish in the evening and breakfast at 11 or 12. And that means that you you restrict your eating to sit in between 6 to 8 hours a day, and that results in about 5% of weight loss in people who want to lose weight. It's not necessarily about actively eating less calories, but it's just restricting those opportunities for eating, and snacking means that your body and mind benefit. But anything is better than that American pattern of constant 18-hour eating. So how we can eat better? In summary, snacking is not needed. It's a marketing tool. There is no need whatsoever to snack in between meals. Hunger is just a manifestation of our conditioned belief that we cannot get by for a few hours without eating something. It's completely fictitious. 3 meals a day would be a big step forward, just to have breakfast, dinner, and tea. and as I said, there's no real need for snacking in between. That's not something that most of us do, but that would be a stepping backwards in time, but a big step forward for our health. So even eating within 12 hours would also be a big improvement in what many of us are experiencing. And fasting is beneficial. Those things can be thought of as we move towards a healthier lifestyle. And also eating with family, eating with friends, having some fun while you're eating, making eating a special thing. Meal times tends to be the time where people get together, sit together, discuss things, have a joke, have a laugh, and that brings enormous benefits too. So in conclusion, dietary advice for people with MS is not only an effective change in our lives, an effective intervention for medical and nursing staff, it's a vital intervention. I think this is something that really offers so much benefit for people with MS. Right, going through the list of lifestyle improvements, the things that can reduce our risks so greatly. Exercise is another one. It's been shown clearly in many trials and surveys to improve and maintain function in MS. It reduces the risk of depression, which is a particular problem with MS. It improves our ability to think, our cognitive performance, and incredibly, it reduces brain shrinkage and disease progression. And that's very impressive and really worth thinking about, because surveys have shown the vast majority of people in the UK are getting very little exercise, and that offers a big opportunity for changing your life in a positive direction. It's important to do what you like. You don't have to buy an incredible machine or join a gym or go anywhere in particular or develop a hobby or go to the swimming pool. All those things are great if you enjoy them. If you want to do them, that's absolutely brilliant, but you don't have to. You can build activity into your day-to-day living, walking wherever you can walk, cycling if you can cycle, just going to the park every day, having a dog to walk, going out with your children, anything, going to the toilet downstairs at work instead of on the same floor. Any way of increasing your activity is going to bring health benefits. But exercise is better if it's fun. It's better if it's done with others, because that's more fun. Pilates and yoga, all those activities bring their own particular types of benefits, and as does any particular type of exercise. Outdoors is ideal, of course, because you're getting a dose of vitamin D as well, which I'll come to in a moment. But certainly any level of activity is better than nothing. There can be huge benefits from just 10, 20 minutes of exercise a day. So that's something that for us all to think about with MS. There are issues of fatigue and tiredness and lack of energy with MS. We've all experienced that. And it's very important to respect your boundaries. But it's also good to know where they are, to gently approach your boundaries. Do as much as you can, but don't push yourself too far, because if you push yourself too far, the next day you might regret it, feel tired, feel worn out, and experience a sense of defeat. So whatever you do, do it carefully, build it up gradually, just gently lean on those boundaries. You'll find that they're pushed back as you become fitter, whatever our level of exercise. In a wheelchair, it's very important to keep your arms as strong as you can. If you're using a stick, it's important to keep your legs as strong as we can. And for all of us, we all find our own particular journey towards fitness, but know where your boundaries are and just approach them and push them gently. Avoiding alcohol is the next topic. The vexed subject of sensible drinking. There's a few myths here. One is, I've experienced this peculiarly over my entire career, that the notion that people who drink live longer. Here's a recent thing I picked up from the Telegraph referring to some research in Queen's University Belfast. People who drank up to 3 glasses of wine or beer a week are 7% likely to die or develop cancer than those who don't drink at all, which is completely strange to me. And indeed, when it's looked at properly by detailed, widespread studies looking at large numbers, we find that there is no level of alcohol consumption that has benefit. Low and even small amounts of alcohol have no benefit on mortality. So the idea that a little bit of alcohol makes you live longer is not borne out by good science. Here's another study from a very well-respected peer-reviewed journal saying that light to moderate drinking seems to reduce the risk of dementia and cognitive decline in older subjects. But does it really? This is a study recently published in the BMJ looking at 350 people, following them up over 35 years and comparing alcohol consumption to outcomes as measured on MRI scanning. And lo and behold, they find that alcoholic consumption, even at moderate levels, is associated with adverse brain outcomes, including shrinkage of some very important areas. So alcohol, no level of alcohol does the brain good. And the reality is it costs money, that hangovers are horrible. I haven't had one for a while, but I do remember them. They're not very good. The day after a drink, alcohol doesn't do your cognition any good. Mood is affected. Alcohol is ultimately a depressant if you drink too much, and it interferes with sleep, all of which can be exactly what you don't want with MS. And of course, there are the behavioural consequences of drinking too much, which are visible any Saturday night in any town and in the confines of many homes too. So why is the confusion? Well, having fun is good for you. Getting out with friends is good for you. A good social life really helps life in general, levels of happiness, levels of contentment, and is particularly important for people with MS to share their life with others. And it's good for relaxing and winding down. All these things in our culture are things we lubricate with the help of alcohol, and that's why there are benefits, not so much to about the alcohol itself, but to what we do when we're drinking. It's great fun and we do good things. So drink sensibly, drink with care. If you get a hangover, you've drunk too much, no question about it. Have lots and lots of booze-free days, as many as you can between one event and another, and save alcohol for special occasions rather than a habit. If you want to be perfect, no alcohol at all, but none of us are perfect, and I like the occasional wine, but I do keep it very occasionally. If I get a whiff of a hangover, I know that's been too much. And finally, a quality diet. But before we go into the details of that, what's a quality diet for? What does it do? Well, first, it keeps your weight normal. If your weight's not normal, either too light, which is uncommon nowadays, or too heavy, which is almost universal, there's something wrong with your diet. A quality diet keeps your weight normal. It maintains your health. It gives you health. It boosts your health. It reduces your chance of endless numbers of diseases and improves the outcome with MS. It makes you feel better. It gives you energy. It makes you feel good. And it improves the outlook for people with MS. That's what a diet should do, as well as being good for the planet. A diet rich in whole foods is better in so many ways. It's beyond the brief of this this discussion to talk about how it is good for the planet and therefore the future and therefore our children, but it certainly is. So, and rather than going into particular aspects of food at the moment, the framework for a quality diet, as I've discussed, is low added sugar, low starches to potatoes, rice, pasta, and starchy white bread to reduce weight. Lots of leafy vegetable fruits are really good for your health. Whole grains are so much better than processed grains. Nuts and seeds galore. Real fish and meat. The processed stuff is dreadful. The real stuff can be a real boon for your health. And healthy fats and oils, olive oils, flax oil, and treated with great care when you're cooking. There we are. So if you take up non-smoking, give up smoking if you're a smoker, if you manage to stay trim, lose weight, take more exercise, drink sensibly, and eat a quality diet, what does this mean for you? The risk of heart disease is cut down by 80%, cancer by half, diabetes almost done away with. You're 20 times more likely to be disease-free if you adopt most of those lifestyle characteristics than if you don't. It's undoubtedly the other disease-modifying therapy for MS, as well as being 60% reducing your risk of being hospitalized with COVID-19 by 60%. So it's absolutely amazing. The effective lifestyle is incredible. And it's such an opportunity for getting control of MS, for really doing what we can. So that's how to avoid the major pitfalls and improve our outcome. We now look at particular lifestyle issues for people with MS. We'll go through these. They won't take very long, but the first I'll look at is MS diets, then brain healthy food, vitamin D, sleep and meditation, as I mentioned above. But why eat a healthy diet with MS in particular? Well, the sort of killer fact, isn't it, is that your brain is 70% fat already. That, you know, the structure of your brain is largely made of fat. The myelin sheath is made which have made a certain type of fat. Coupled with that is the fact that fats control the balance of inflammation and multiple sclerosis. And the sclerosis is an inflammatory disorder. High triglycerides are one aspect of your cholesterol measurement that your GP could well do, or the hospital doctors, I think, also do, which reflects a high sugar diet, too much alcohol, leading to high triglycerides. It reflects a poor lifestyle. This doubles the risk of relapses. Obesity doubles the relapse risk, as I mentioned above, and a poor diet leads to other illnesses. That's why a brain healthy diet is so important. Coupled with that fact, I'm sure many of you might have heard of the microbiome, healthy brains and healthy bowels. They have a very intimate relationship with each other. The bacteria in the bowel provides neurotransmitters which have a direct effect on stress and anxiety, as well as mood and behavior. And the brain controls the motility, the activity, the nutrient delivery, and the balance of microbes within the bowel. The key here is what we put into our guts. A healthy diet creates a healthy microbiome with benefits in terms of stress, anxiety, mood, and behavior. This is growing in importance as research reveals what's going on. And this is a little thing my daughter made for me a few years ago when she realized I was becoming a bit of a food nut. Make food your medicine and make medicine your food. That's why this is a particularly important area for people with MS. So I'll say a word about MS diets. You'll have come across these perhaps, or if you haven't, perhaps you should. There's the Overcoming MS diet, which is a part of a 7-step lifestyle, which is designed for people with MS. The Walls protocol is another way of looking at lifestyle and MS. They're both written by accomplished doctors who've been diagnosed with MS themselves and have very much to say about how to look at how they've managed to adapt to the situation and the evidence they've gathered, which might be helpful. Overcoming MS diet is largely about whole food diet plus seafood and the use of flax oil to boost your omega-3 levels. The Walls protocol, when it comes to diet, is about a whole food diet plus healthy meat, which is where they differ. Then there's Mediterranean diet with its similar emphasis, really, but there's a particular aspects of the Mediterranean diet involving olive oil, fish, but again, whole foods, whole real foods, and increasing interest in a ketogenic diet, which is represented here by a diet, a plate full of food, which is low in carbohydrates, higher in fat. There's something that's of particular interest. I'll say another word about ketogenic diets because it's very much in the news. It's part of how this fight back against diabetes is being led with low carbohydrate meals, food comprised of low carbohydrates, no sugar, low starches, which means moderate levels of protein and higher intake of fat, i.e. on your table, lots of leafy vegetables, not root vegetables, healthy meat and fish, not the processed kind, and lots of eggs and dairy to make up a diet, which provides a very high level of fats. And there are 3 theoretical benefits for your health, which are certainly worth looking at as a part of making your own decisions about the sort of diet you want to eat. Some of these off the peg, if you like, diets are something that people engage with. And if you want to look at them and explore and adopt those particular diets, they will all be a vast improvement on the traditional average diet we eat in the West. So in terms of brain healthy food, what do they have all in common? Again, low added sugar, low carbs, leafy vegetables, lots of fruits, nuts and seeds, real fish and real meat, not the processed sort, healthy fats and oils. I'm repeating myself, I know, but it's absolutely true. Healthy fats and oils that are about which you take care whilst processing. In other words, mindful shopping. In my view, there's about 80% of aisles in the supermarket which have dangerous food on offer. Stick to the 20% and it'll make shopping much easier. And remember, good food makes you feel good, not just in terms of satisfying cravings such as a bar of chocolate, but good food makes you feel good all day long and all life long. It has direct effects on mental health. There's growing evidence now that how we feel, not only in terms of energy levels and so on, it's also our actual mental health. Mental illness is caused directly, at least in part, by the food we eat. So for anybody with mental health problems, stress, anxiety, depression, please think about the food you're eating, because there are enormous benefits to be gained there. Bad food directly, irrespective of everything else in life, causes mental health problems because of the way it interacts with our brains. Right, a word about vitamin D. This is particularly important with MS because, as many of you might know, there's a higher incidence of MS the further you go away from the heat and the sun of the equator. This is something that's got worse over the years because we live such an indoor life, as well as damp, overcast summers, which increasingly seem to be the case. And I put the little picture of the Viking boat, which is snuggled behind the picture of me, because in many of these Nordic areas, in Iceland, Canada, the Inuit population and the Siberian populations only can live there by eating high amounts of fresh oily fish, and which contain large amounts of vitamin D. Now that those habits are changing, people in Nordic countries are experiencing more and more brain problems when it comes to multiple sclerosis, and at least some of that can be addressed by MS. The science behind this might not be rock solid yet, but the associations are absolutely clear. Higher levels of vitamin D in your blood are associated with lower risk of relapses. It's an association, but for me, it's good enough to take vitamin D. Our vitamin D levels are very low. That's the average. This is old world primates have got very high levels of vitamin D, as have human beings, those rare creatures who are exposed to full sunshine most of the day. For us, our vitamin D levels are very much lower in the West, but can be improved by taking vitamin D. And most specialists seem to be recommending 4,000 to 5,000 units every day. I take 5,000 units a day because that's a cheap and reliable dose for me. The evidence is compelling enough to make this a part of our lifestyle. I take 5,000 units a day, and it's useful to have blood tests done. Hospitals are usually doing these, but GPs can do them as well. Excuse me, in the past, GPs used to be a bit reluctant due to the cost of vitamin D tests, but the price has dropped like everything. They're only £6 each now. So if you ask a GP, I'm sure they'll happily oblige. Certainly if you tell them it's that cheap. Sleep is another area. If you think about it, bad sleep leads to fuzzy thinking, poor concentration, fatigue, low mood and anxiety, stress, all things which are common with MS at the best of times. So bad sleep really does compound the problem, compound our day-to-day life struggle with multiple sclerosis. And of course, good sleep turns that on its head. If you could have a drug that gives you clear thinking, sharper concentration, better energy levels, leaves you less accident prone, improves your mood, reduces your levels of anxiety, leads to less craving and a better immune system, it would be a blockbuster. But with good sleep, these things are all achievable. So it's important to recognize if you're not sleeping well, to just step back and have a think about how it can be improved. There are some obvious things in life that make a difference, but if you have real struggle with sleep, have a word with your GP or the practice nurse or the MS nurse or your specialist, and find ways of addressing the sleep problem, because it really is something with enormous benefits. Meditation too is something that's not commonly practiced in the West. You don't have to go up to the top of the mountain in Tibet for 4 years daily to become a meditation expert. It's something you can do in any quiet place in your house. Why should you do it? Again, there's a proven link between stress and relapses. Meditation reduces anxiety and stress. And it also helps us manage the stressful events that are so common for people with MS. And it helps with depression, pain, and enhances levels of happiness. It's a tool to use very much. I've meditated every day since my diagnosis, 20 minutes, half an hour. And it's just something that you can have some time to yourself, just time to reflect, quieten the mind. And this does have very positive immune benefits. Indeed, powerfully enough, it can help rewire the brain. It reduces the size of the parts of the brain that are associated with depression and anxiety. So meditation is very effective. So how do you go about meditation? Well, first decide it'll be helpful. Look into it. There's plenty of good information online. The Overcoming MS book is a very good section on meditation. Think about it. Decide it's something that you want to take up. It's certainly good advice to. Find what suits you. There's lots of online stuff, but you can just sit in a quiet place and contemplate the ground in front of you, or different parts of your body, or just the view, or up the blank wall. It's finding techniques of just quietening your mind. That does involve putting aside some time, and it can seem very difficult, but it just takes 10 minutes or so. Don't expect miracles. A lot of people tend to pick up to start meditation and stop within a few weeks because it doesn't seem to make any difference. It's just a bit of a pain. You know, you're busy enough, you can't find the time. But if you stick with it, you find that as you meditate, you find peace. You just have those moments after stressful days where you can just have time, and your pulse settles down, the mind empties, and you can feel something really quite special. But you have to persist with it to get there. But once you get there, it becomes a tool that you can use when you experience any of the stresses in life which can be so common with MS. Preventing MS in family members is the final part of this talk. This, as I said, really hit me when I was diagnosed. My daughter's risk had gone from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 100. Still not too bad, but it did send a shiver down my spine when I contemplated what the difference for her. That's JC with Luke, my grandson. And of course, I'd do anything to prevent them having MS. But what actually is it that makes a difference? Well, it goes right back to before conception. Live well before and while you're planning, and then during pregnancy. All the lifestyle measures I've talked about will really make a big difference to conception and the growing child before they're born. After birth, breastfeeding makes a huge difference. Studies which account for all the other different aspects of life have shown that breastfeeding reduces the risk of multiple sclerosis by 50% in offspring. And breastfeeding levels are very low in this country. In Plymouth, they're running about 17% of women are breastfeeding at 6 weeks. So there's much work to do there, and the benefits of breastfeeding for people with MS are absolutely gigantic. Eat a healthy diet, share that diet with your children. That will help avoid childhood obesity, which will then halve their risk of developing MS, because childhood obesity, particularly in the early teenage years, are associated with a doubling of the risk of MS. Non-smoking is really important, because if you don't smoke, your kids are far less likely, A, to be exposed to passive smoke, and B, to take up smoking themselves. Vitamin D levels can be assured, if not by the outdoor life, then by appropriate doses of vitamin D for the different ages, which can be found on any reasonable website. And exercise, active family life is very helpful as well, to keep your children fit, and that will help keep their weight down. And of course, avoiding and managing stress. I think it's a particularly stressful time for youngsters nowadays, and in this country particularly so, because we don't prioritise our children in a way that many European countries do, our children tend to be less content and more under pressure than children everywhere. Children elsewhere, according certainly in the OECD nations. And I think managing the stress that teenagers in particular experience is a very important part of family life in this day and age. So to conclude, the disease-modifying approach, once you've overcome the initial shock of being diagnosed with MS and you're wondering how to approach life, I'd say it's very important to develop that positive attitude after diagnosis, that feeling that you're going to do what you can to control and improve your lot with MS. Share and enlist your experiences, share with family members, friends, colleagues and employers. Tell everybody that you've got this problem and you're doing everything you can to deal with it. And it's, as I say, with modern treatments as they are and the huge benefits that come from lifestyle, there's every expectation for a young person with MS to be able to fulfill their ambitions and lead healthy and long lives. Get your medication and therapy sorted out as quickly as we can. There are challenges there with the COVID situation, but nonetheless, if you're going to start medication, and for most people that will be the case, the sooner the better, and whatever therapies you need to set you on your way. But then engage with a disease-modifying lifestyle, which involves, to summarize, I'm sorry to nag, but it's the same points all over again. Stop poisoning ourselves with smoke, sugar, starch, and unhealthy heated oils. Eat really well, good wholemeal food. It's not rocket science. Proper meat and 2 veg was the standard fare for generations, and there's nothing wrong with going back to that. Get rid of all the edible food-like products which come in packets with complex ingredients which are tasty but deadly. Get enough sun and vitamin D, always a good recipe. Vitamin D supplementation is really important. Be as active as you can, and exercise. That helps in so many areas in terms of mental and physical health. Meditation is a good tool to help use that mind-body connection, which has been shown to make a big difference and prevent family members from getting MS. That's the disease-modifying lifestyle in a nutshell. But it involves being kind to yourself. This isn't a punishment. It's not austerity. This is about caring for yourself, and through caring for yourself, caring for your family. It's about being kind to yourself, feeling better on a day-by-day basis. Although these changes can be difficult to implement, they can be done bit by bit or suddenly if you can, but you will end up feeling better, having more energy, less fatigue, sleeping better. All those different aspects are so important. And life becomes more enjoyable. The problem with our lives in the West, the problem with the Western lifestyle is we get used to feeling bad. We get so used to feeling bad, we can't remember what it's like to feel good. But when you put these changes into place, eat healthy, get the garbage out of your diet, stop smoking, stop sugar, we start really experiencing how good we can feel on a day-by-day basis. And that means that life becomes more enjoyable. And we can do this. These changes are all achievable for the vast majority of people. It can be done. It's not rocket science. I like this cartoon because they've clearly got things wrong, but we can get this right. The basic messages are very, very simple. It's not rocket science. And there are big opportunities for people with MS when it comes to lifestyle. After diagnosis, it's an incredible time for motivation. It's at that point where fear, uncertainty really creates an environment where changes in lifestyle which are going to help can be embraced more readily. It's a big opportunity in the year or two after diagnosis to really set yourself on a different and more healthy tangent, and the benefits of which will only grow as time goes by. I don't think for doctors and nurses out there you can necessarily address this within all these different issues within the normal consultation. I mean, it's taken me an hour to get through this brief survey of lifestyle with MS, which is why in Newton Abbot we set up this special educational events, mornings put aside as a part of the normal life of the MS team, the normal activities of the MS team. They're not extra, they're not bolt-ons, there's no extra cost. But have a morning where with rather than seeing a series of patients through the morning, you see 10 patients and their families together to go through the importance of these lifestyle changes. And I think the evidence from Newton Abbot and elsewhere, of course, there are many good things going around the country, shows that these experiences can be very, very special for patients and sometimes can be transformative, can be big moments in a life and can change people's course through life. But we do need to be followed up. One of the key things about Dr. Unwin up north and my little project as well was the ability to follow patients up, to give this advice and then later on to see how people are getting with it, what challenges there are, what problems there are. And that does need following up and monitoring. And there's a little bit of a problem here because I think there's many hospital teams that assume general practice are doing it. And I can tell you that general practice is not doing it specifically. People with MS don't come within the framework that's been designed for us. The incentives we have to pick up people, for instance, with diabetes and look at lifestyle issues and their overall management. People with MS are not specifically seen by GPs, so we're not necessarily measuring these things. We're not necessarily looking at the general health. All it takes is a measurement of weight, blood pressure, maybe cholesterol might be useful, and to inquire about smoking. This should be done, in my opinion, at if somebody's a smoker, every opportunity they should be asked how they're getting on with it, and any help they might need to stop, put into place, as well as all the other lifestyle issues I've mentioned. This needs to be done, I think, as a fundamental part of MS work as well, and it can therefore be documented. And if, for instance, if there's a population of MS patients in a clinic and no one's giving up smoking and no one's losing weight, I would think that's a particular quality issue that needs to be addressed because it's a lost opportunity. To end up with a disease-modifying lifestyle, which I'll go back to my initial aims. If these steps are adopted, it will improve the outcome for people with MS significantly. It will improve the general health and well-being of the whole population, but people with MS in particular. And it will reduce the incidence of MS. If we could get patients with MS to look at their families, then perhaps the toll of MS in the future would be reduced. There are issues with food policy, there's issues with bad farming, there's global issues that are coming to bear on this whole area of a healthy lifestyle, but we can do this in our clinics and in our homes to improve the lot of people with MS and reduce the chances of our descendants getting it. So that's been my journey through lifestyle as a GP and as a person with MS and as someone very interested in food and the enormous benefits that we can get from adopting the disease-modifying lifestyle. And I'd just like to conclude by saying thank you very much for listening. That's my email address if anybody should care to ask a question, and that's a blog I've written mainly about COVID, but also with general health and diet related issues. And I can only conclude by saying best of health. Thank you very much. There's an increasing movement in pain relief and all sorts of other aspects of the health system towards seeing people in groups to fine-tune our educational skills and give patients early in their diagnosis what is potentially a really life-changing experience to bring them right up to speed with current thinking about diet and all aspects of healthy living. We hope that this will make a significant difference not only to the individual's experience of MS, but also in the wider MS community, positively affecting workload and maybe even the incidence of MS in the future.
Okay, so thanks for listening, and we hope that we inspired you with the information that we've provided today, and we hope that each individual MS centre and site would implement similar clinics running alongside the routine clinics for people with MS. Many thanks. Thanks for watching.